Yo, so welcome to the Spaceless Realms Podcast. Me and Kalki are here, and it is currently the day after Valentine's Day, and we are here to speak about love and how to love yourself, how to love others, and yeah, basically just connect with that energy of love and what love can really do for you and also the other people around you. So yeah,
Yo,
Kalki, welcome.
it's a pleasure, Tansin Totemtic. Pleasure to be here. I'd like to start this by saying to everyone out there, to everyone that, I believe, obviously people don't want to hear that. I'm like, that's fine. But to everybody who vibes with what we're doing, who relates to who we are and to the world, to the planet, to Mother Nature, to, resisting colonization, to decolonizing, to being anti-colonial, to being warriors of the rainbow, essentially, I'd like to say, I love you, je t'aime, te amo, koshitara, aishitara, nagigivagi, gisasahetin, konoronkwa, ikenisten, hauhonsa, moyolo, noyolo. That's, I love you in about 8 different languages.
It's amazing how all these different
But it's a lot more.
I was saying, like, it's amazing how all
Sorry?
these different words and all these different languages can express the meaning of love. It's very cool.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's crazy because if you start going back to the roots of what each of those phonemes expresses in a symbolic depiction, in a pictograph, in a hieroglyph, in a letter, they're all very, very different. I'm translating and essentializing by saying it all means I love you, but it's infinitely more complex than that. I couldn't even begin to properly translate these indigenous languages, which strangely enough are all part of my diaspora. Just like yours, the Tsigani, those are all part of my cultures, all of them. And that's why I've learned them. But I couldn't even begin to describe what Nagligivagit in Inuktitut actually means. It's extremely complex compared to I love you. It would be like saying my love for you is boundless and eternal. But even then, those words in a colonial language couldn't properly translate it. So, for example, Moyolo Noyolo in Nahuatl or in Aztec language actually means my heart is of the rainbow and your heart is of the rainbow. So that's what you say to each other when you love each other so unconditionally that you want to spend the rest of your lives together. But like we were saying earlier, it's something that we could say about, you could say that about nature, you could say that about Mother Nature. You could say that like my heart is of the rainbow for Mother Nature because she cares about us so much. The planet Earth sustains us and nurtures us. The idea that Earth can be very ruthless and brutal and violent and unforgiving, that's a result of colonization. Back in ancient ages and ancient root race civilizations, Mother Earth was not unforgiving and ruthless and violent. Animals were not devouring each other and raping and killing. There's a time where they say that in Dwapara, for example, with Krishna and Radha, in Indian mythological or semi-mythological times, they say that the lion and the lamb walk next to each other. The lion and the calf walk next to each other. The lion did not eat the calf, and the wolf did not eat the rabbit. Those beings, the so-called predators, were not predatory. They were symbiotic. And we all know wolves can be omnivores. They can eat fruits. They can eat bears, love berries. That's one of the reasons why we even have that term, even if it's from different semantic fields. So many complex realities that we don't consider when we don't consider the interconnectedness. People always talk about the interconnectedness of good and of love, which is extremely important. This web of life that intertwines all of us. That's why in La Quechalakin, or in La Quechalakin, in Mayan actually means I am another you and you are another me. And I feel like with us it works pretty well because you're Wolverine and I'm Wolverine in different ways, But it works for anyone in general. We're all replications of different, spatial distortions of, we can shift our faces from emotional expressions, which is another way to express love. Pathokinesis, the shifting of emotion from a distance, which is considered an extrasensory perception, is what we do every time we say good words or bad words towards each other. So that can restructure a person's facial expressions, facial features. It can sicken, or cripple them in a sense that's non-ableist, of course, but it's extremely complex. We're told that these extrasensory perceptions don't exist, that Reiki is a theoretical thing. A lot of people discount Reiki as a bogus science, but it's the science of energy coming from the earth and flowing through our bodies. It's undeniable. Somebody even hugging someone, it's a form of contact Reiki. Nobody can deny that you're shifting the emotional, for better or for worse, shifting the emotional status of a person by hugging them, or by kissing them, or by even speaking a good word. So all of these extrasensory perceptions are all real. They're not even extrasensory. They're just senses that we have forgotten, that we were lied to and told didn't exist.
How would somebody go about healing with love those parts of yourself?
Ooh, I mean, I think it starts, I had to learn my whole life. It
Mm,
took me a long, long time through many relationships to realize that I think a lot of my partners, they say you attract who you are oftentimes, but they also say opposites attract. So that, I have another, there's a picture on my Instagram, but I don't even know where I found it, but there's a good quote on there that says, sometimes you don't always attract who you are. Sometimes you attract, who you need to heal, and
mm,
not necessarily who you need to heal yourself, but who needs to heal you as well.
mm,
So I feel like I've done that a lot of times in my life. I've attracted people that were struggling in ways very similar to me, in complementary opposites, that didn't know fully how to love themselves. And I loved them so much that they loved me immensely as well. But then they didn't know how to love themselves properly. No disrespect intended to any of my partners. They've told me that as well. They've said, well, no, I can't. I'm not as beautiful as you think I am. I'm not this person in the poems that you wrote for me. I am not that, you love a person who's way better than me. And I said, no, that's you. That's who I see as you. But then they would tell me this, and no, you're the one that's really amazing. You're really beautiful. You're really so gifted and you're so artistic. And I was like, no, but I'm nothing compared to you. But then that becomes a toxic form of nihilistic codependence in a sense, because you can only love your better half, and you keep thinking the better half is better than you, and you're not worthy of them, and they think they're not worthy of you, and that you're too worthy for them. So it's an entrapment tactic that's not beneficial. It's what they usually consider to be a soulmate attachment, karmic attachment. Is it
mm,
soulmates? It depends how you define the words, but soulmates, it's like friends of the soul in a sense.
mm,
So you learn to love each other so much that you ignore sometimes the problems that you have together, or the non-ideal parts of your relationship, so that you can love each other more equitably and more evenly. But then you don't evolve as quickly as, say, for example, with the twin flame. Twin flames burn brightly, and they're like intertwining DNA strands. You move apart, you come back together, and every time you burn brighter. And sometimes the light goes out, you go back out apart, and then you come back together and you go back out. But twin flames evolve in a quantum leap sense. Twin flames usually, from what someone who goes by Prisca Teologia on Instagram, one of my closest kin in the planet, who told me a long time ago, you only have one twin flame, and I'm that person for you. And I believe her to this day still. But then when I found Imani, to me, Imani is like my twin mirror. She's like a twin flame, a soulmate, a twin soul, a partner in crime. And when I say crime, I don't mean to be doing criminal activities against the laws of Mat, for example, or against timeless laws, but I mean against the laws of colonial society. She's like this cool idea of a Bonnie and Clyde type of person, that you're not doing drive-bys or going around, but she's down for whatever. And I found all of that within her that I couldn't find within anyone else. And I find like the best way to move and to heal, first of all, is to love yourself. So that's a very convoluted way to answer your question. So
mm.
learning to love yourself is seeing the beauty that others have already seen in you, and seeing that reflected, and seeing that you're worthy of these compliments. And even if you don't get those compliments, to learn to love the better aspects of yourself. And if you don't love certain parts of yourself, work on them until you can. Sometimes it takes almost a lifetime to get there. I mean, I'm 41 in colonial ages right now, and it took me up to about 38, 39 years old to actually learn to properly love myself enough to be in a healthy relationship with someone that I could accept compliments from, and tell her, okay, we're good, we're worthy for each other. You're not better than me, I'm not better than you. You're better at certain things, I'm better at certain others. You look more beautiful to me, but you think I look very beautiful too. We're in different gendered bodies, so we can't start comparing apples and oranges.
Mm, mm. That was a very beautiful way that you explained that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to speak about how ever since a child is birthed into this world and it's just surrounded by that universal love, I feel everyone is connecting, is trying to connect to that universal love from when they were a child. how would you
Hmm.
connect with that energy more and use that energy to fuel your manifestations and fuel the dreams that you want to create in your life?
I would say number one to that to me is being in harmony with the planet, with the forces of the planet, with the denizens of Mother Nature, with the plants, with the insects, with the water, with the trees, with the breeze, the wind, the smell of the flowers, with all of that. This is the magic that totems, that what we call the beings we call pets, the totems, the familiars, the watchers, the guardians, they know this. When you watch a dog smelling a flower or eating their food, even if it's glop, they appreciate it so much. Youth are very similar in a sense. They're very restricted and oppressed by this society. They have very little rights, but they see the magic around us, and reconnecting with your inner youth, like I've said in a previous podcast, and we talked a little bit about that. Reconnecting with your inner youth, with your inner rebellious teenager, especially. I think it's important to recognize the inner youth in you, but don't try to be that, because we're not children anymore. We're not youth anymore. But connect with the magic from that, connect with the supernatural aspects, with the limitless potential of creativity and imagination and dreams that youth have. But identify with your inner rebellious teenager, which is, don't become an adulterous being. Don't thrive to in a society you give up on this, give up on that, sacrifice this. Next generations will be better. You've got to work a 9 to 5. You've got to blend yourself into society. But adult comes from, like we said before, the root adultery comes from adulation, from over worship, from unhealthy worship. So I'd say be an eternal teenager. Find the youth inside of you. And like I said before as well, if the youth or the teenager that you used to be wouldn't want to honor you, something is very fundamentally wrong with your life, and you will not be able to find love. Because so when you're with someone, they say oftentimes when you find love in another person, your better half, whoever they may be, it's very important in that romantic relationship kind of love on a human or a mutant or a supernatural level. It's extremely important to find a person with whom your inner youth would be agreeable, would love to hang out with each other. They see each other in the magic that they are, represent each other. The inner teenagers would love each other. The persons who are now love each other. And even your demons, the beings that are attached to you, the beings that when they say your inner demons, whatever's in your closet, everything else, those beings together. They say if your demons play well together, even if your demons, like that level of whoever is attached to you, even if those beings don't hate who you are, then and hate the other person, then basically it would be an ideal relationship to actually be in that situation.
Hmm.
I'm live. Can we talk about this in 30 minutes? My apologies.
It's okay, bro. I can cut this out. It's okay.
No, it's all good. It's just this is a funny thing. I'm on my last day here visiting my mother, and she just asked me if the supper was ready.
See, and just like
Expectations,
and that, like, this experience just shows like that motherly love and like that divine connection within itself.
Yeah, and then we go back and forth. I think it's very interesting too. Like, her as a mother, she can be very loving and kind sometimes, but right now she's expecting me to have done something that she assumed I had done, which I have not even been asked about. She never asked me to cook supper. She just expected me to have supper ready for her when she came home, but which usually I would. But right now I'm not thinking about time. I didn't even think about supper. I wasn't hungry. I haven't gone downstairs in hours. I'm just like, so it's funny to think. I think parents can have both. Most parents, and I've read a book a long time ago. I found it for $1 at a thrift store. It's really amazing. It talks about the 7 toxic ways of parenting, and there's not a single way in there that's expressed as being healthy. So I think you're one of the rare beings that might have the 8th level of like a healthy parenting, because you have a super good relationship with your parents, which is amazing. Mine is on and off. It depends. My father, I don't think of him the same way as I do anymore, because he disappeared when I was 5.
Mm.
He went, the Buddha just ran away from society and went and meditated in the great north, never came back, and abandoned both of his families. So or maybe more than 2 families, I'm not even sure. He has 2 children that I know of, including me, but 2 youth that he had. But to me, you don't automatically need to love your parents. If your parents have a toxic behavior towards you, it's very important to call that out. Same thing with a partner. And the problem, like I said, with the soulmate relationship usually is they can't call out the toxicity they have for each other, because they love each other so unconditionally that they don't want to harm each other by saying anything negative. Now, with me, with Imani, what I think is amazing, with my goddess, with my partner in crime, like I like to call her sometimes. What's wonderful is we talk about everything. Like we literally talk about everything every morning, from telling each other our dreams when we wake up in the morning to telling each other all the problems we have when she's depressed about something. I'm like, what can I do to help out with that? If she's a little bit annoyed, I'm like, did I do anything wrong? Like, is there anything I can change like this? And she'll tell me if there is. Say, like the other day, she was saying I have a tendency to overtalk sometimes, and I'll talk so quickly that I don't realize she's not finished talking. She has a breath pause for 2 seconds, and I jump in. I've done that with you too. So I apologize for that, and I said when we're in person, it's different, because usually when you're speaking on the phone, more complex. But when you're in each other's physical presence, your energies counterbalance each other.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, see, we're all learning, so it's always good to keep that teenager within you inside, and like that youthful curiosity within you inside. And
Yep.
you not just get comfortable at a certain level and at a certain state, which I feel like a lot of humanity is only on a certain level, and they're only, if they are willing to open their minds, and they're only going to willingly climb the ladder. But most people are stuck at a certain level. And I feel like that certain level is linked a lot with love and the ability to have love and compassion for yourself and also for others. Because
Very, very true. And I think that the limitation on the opposite side of that love, like what's linked to love, when it's healthy, those levels evolve. It's very similar to what I was saying earlier. To me, I think the entrapment of having false love is very closely linked with patriarchy and religion, which has to do with binding and submitting, feeling like you're an eternal sinner, feeling like you're never good enough, like you have to bow down in submission to this giant, perfect God in the sky who controls and sees everything. That to me is the opposite of love. When somebody says, "My God is eternal love, my God is unconditional love, but you're going to burn in infinite hells if you don't worship Him," like that's the greatest delusion in the world. And strangely enough, all these religions tell people that we should either entirely avoid love, avoid passion, avoid desire, avoid women. They usually demonize women. They tell us we should not be in relationships, or that if we are in relationships, we should only be like animals and reproduce and find no pleasure whatsoever in being together. That's the opposite of love. That's extremely toxic. And I feel like religions force us into this idea, like we were saying earlier, of having one ultimate eternal partner for all of existence that you're not supposed to have pleasure with, that you're not supposed to do anything else than reproduce to have children with, and then reproduce that pattern onto children, which is extremely toxic and abusive. Religion to me is child abuse. I'm not talking spirituality, but it really is, because you're forcing your views onto people and forcing them. It would be like I said earlier, if somebody said, I have, like, the idea of having one book, one God, one love, it's like saying I have one friend. That sounds great. That's better than none. But if somebody's like, I have one friend, everyone else is trying to be a friend with me, is fake and a liar, and they're going to burn in hell, or they're a demon, or there's something. That's basically what religion does to us. And that's what monotheism, that's what monogamy does to us, is the idea that having one single love that's extremely jealous and possessive and this and that, where you're constantly reinforcing your codependence. It would be like saying anybody who tries to befriend you after you've got that one best friend is fake. And it makes no sense, because we have lots of best friends. We have lots of friends. Many people might have less, but at the end of the day, even if somebody has only one friend, they probably wish that they had more than that, unless that's a perfect friend. And I would say, don't shun that true love if you find it. If you find a person you want to spend the rest of eternity with, and I've found these people, to me, every single